You guys are gonna get so sick of me talking about this. But the only way for it to stop is for you guys to watch all the episodes. So I am very proud to announce that the second episode of Super Skilled, my show with Nat Geo, has just gone live, and it is a very special episode that I've been wanting to film for years because it features the Hadzabe hunter-gatherers, some of the most incredible people on this planet. Yes, they still hunt and forage for most of their food pretty much every single day. They live in houses like this, in small communities. They are incredible hunters and trackers and amazing people. They have some really interesting perspectives on life too. I mean, yeah. Anyway, in today's video, I want to tell you guys a little bit about the reality versus expectation, or like what actually happened and what actually went wrong on all the shoots that we did for Super Skilled. I know that like in the videos, it probably looks like everything went perfectly. It didn't. A lot of things went wrong. So I kind of want to take you through all the crazy stories that we experienced while filming this show, because honestly, there were occasions where I was like, this may not happen. This may not happen, you know? Let me start with the Hadzabe episode, the one that just went live. So this is me trying to find food and water in 35-degree heat. Now, I'm not a tracker, I'm not a forager, I'm not a hunter, nothing like that. But my challenge in this episode was to survive a day with just the food that I found myself and just the water that I found myself. No cheating, I couldn't eat anything else, I couldn't drink anything else. If I didn't find food, I didn't eat. If I didn't find water, I didn't drink. So what happened next was, of course, that my water that I found spilled. Didn't go well. And then, you know, I spent a ton of time digging in the ground for what I thought were tubers, but actually turned out to be just inedible roots. It was super hot, I was exhausted, I was dehydrated, things were not looking up. This is basically the whole premise of the episode. Now, spoiler alert, there was some kind of happy ending. And I feel like I learned a lot from the Hadzabe. It's an amazing episode filled with all kinds of ups and downs. Now, that's Hadza. And I feel like this episode is the one that went the best from like a logistical standpoint. Not that many things went wrong apart from me being, hungry and dehydrated and lying in the heat, sweating profusely and cursing my life. Okay, let's move on to Raramuri, which is the episode that went live last week, the very first episode of the show, where I went running 27 miles in a pair of sandals in cartel territory in Mexico. So, you know, that already is a lot, but here's what happened just before the shoot. 2 days before I was supposed to fly out to Mexico for the very first shoot of the Nat Geo show that I had been planning for months, I went running. I went on a little trail run, as you do, and I was running in the mountains, and I was running down the mountain, and I was thinking in my head, like, how awful would it be if I like fell just before the show and broke a leg or something? Like, what would happen then? So of course, the next thing I know is that I find myself in the air, flying over some rocks and falling on the ground, my knees smashing into really rocky terrain. I kind of like shielded myself with my arm, but anyway, my knees took most of the brunt, and I was just laying there on the ground for a second thinking, right, this is how it ends before it even starts. I got up in a bit of a shock. I looked at my knees and they were bleeding profusely, and I took a few steps and I was in a lot of pain. I could barely walk. Within an hour, I could barely walk. I got home, I started icing my knees because I was like, oh my God, did I break something? Did I fracture something? Did I strain my knees 2 days before this huge shoot that's all about running? Oh my God, I was in a state of panic, honestly. I got a physiotherapist appointment the next morning at like 6 a.m. And then another one the minute that I landed in Mexico in the city of Chihuahua with a Mexican physiotherapist. I also got x-rayed. And all, like, you know, this is all happening while I'm trying to figure out the last minute logistics of the shoot, while making my way to Mexico, while trying to like be on camera and be positive on camera. The first couple of days I could walk, but very, very slowly. And then eventually with more movement and just more time I was actually able to run. Nothing was broken, nothing was strained. The bruising was just quite extensive and the wounds themselves hurt me quite a bit. That's not everything that went wrong on that shoot though, because Lufthansa also managed to lose my luggage on the way to Mexico, which meant that my entire show wardrobe was not available to me for the first episode, as well as some key components of our filming kit. So right after that physiotherapist appointment in Chihuahua in Mexico, we went to the local Zara to buy me a couple of shirts because I literally didn't have anything to wear on the shoot. The luggage did make it to me eventually a week later. Oh, also did I mention that on the way into the Copper Canyon to start filming, I also threw up because of motion sickness. And also our transport bailed on us. We ran late and we couldn't exchange money in the way that we'd wanted to. So yeah, a lot of things went wrong, but in the end, the show turned out great. So that was the first episode, you guys. That was the very first episode that we filmed. Everything that could have possibly gone wrong felt like it was going wrong. So you can picture me being like, is this how the rest of the show is gonna go? You know what, in those situations, the only thing that you can do is try and control the variables that you can control. Try and get yourself out of the most pressing, urgent situations. Try and fix the most pressing and urgent problems and trust that everything else will work out. And then just go with the flow. That's my advice to you. Well, actually, that's probably really my advice to me at this point. But yeah. The episode that's going to come out next week is an episode in the Amazon. Now, I'm not going to reveal too much of what happened in that episode and all the things that went wrong, but I will tell you a couple of things. First of all, we went to the Amazon rainforest when the Amazon River was at a very, very low point. We were almost too late. If we had waited another week or two, it's possible that our boat would not have been able to pass into the places that we wanted to reach, making our shoot basically impossible. You'll see all of that in the next episode. I also got whipped by a forest spirit. It was quite painful. And I also agreed to take part in this ritual where they put these special eye drops in my eyes that moved me into a world of absolute horror and pain. That was fun. Don't tell Nat Geo. But on a very, very practical note, I think the main thing that went wrong with this specific shoot is that, we're out there in the rainforest, we're out there in the jungle, we're sleeping in hammocks. There's a very, very basic camp. We have like no luxuries, no running water, no access to reliable power, nothing like that. And I was on my period. So yeah, no toilets, no washrooms, nowhere to like really be super clean and clean things up. You know what I mean? Yeah, I survived. It was fine in the end. It wasn't ideal, but it was fine. Anyway, I'm not sure what was worse, that or the whipping or the eye drops. And last but not least, Kilimanjaro. For the last episode of the entire show, which you will see in early January, we climbed Mount Kilimanjaro with the female porters of Kilimanjaro. Now, this was probably the most dramatic shoot in many ways because so many things went wrong. So just on like a very basic like health kind of level, I went into Kilimanjaro on day one. I started feeling a little bit sick. Like I felt like I had a cold and a cough. By day two, that cough turned into a real hacking cough. And by day 2.5, I was pretty sure that I was having and experiencing a real full-on chest infection, which is exactly what it was. So as I am kind of making my way up the mountain, trying to do this big challenge where I'm carrying some of the gear that the porters carry on Kilimanjaro, I'm also experiencing a full-on chest infection. So I'm coughing my lungs out, my chest is burning, I feel awful, like my energy is just all the way down. And we're trying to film this amazing episode and have this incredible experience. Meanwhile, my body is just like screaming at me to stop. At the same time, I have to keep going up the mountain. There's less oxygen, it's getting colder and colder and more uncomfortable. That was probably the lowest I felt throughout the entire shoot. There were points where I genuinely felt like I wanted to quit. On top of my chest infection, we also had one day where we lost hours of footage. Nobody really knows how it happened. It probably was the dust, the sand, in the air interfering with the camera and the SD cards, but we lost hours of footage. We had to reshoot all of it. That was not a great morale boost, I would say, by and large. But you know, we got together as a team and we pushed through it and we did it all again. And then there's one more thing that happened on the Kilimanjaro shoot. That's where I found out that I had a stalker. And it was at the end of that shoot that the stalker physically appeared in front of me, having flown all the way to Kilimanjaro from Europe. So that all happened on the Kili shoot. Probably the most dramatic shoot I've ever experienced in my entire life. But you know what? Once again, we pushed through, we made it work. So that's just a little bit of the behind the scenes of what it takes to make a show like this and some of the things that go wrong. Now, of course, it wasn't just me overcoming those challenges. It was the incredible team that worked with me. Our producer, Dan, who, you know, was busy trying to figure out all the logistics of all this craziness, trying to help me feel better in any way that he possibly could while I was experiencing various physical and mental ailments. And then there was Josh, our director of photography, who through all of this, through all these crazy conditions, crazy weather, going up Kilimanjaro, was still running around and filming everything, capturing everything with his amazing, unique visual language. And I hope that you appreciate the beautiful visual quality of the show, because that's all Josh is doing. Meanwhile, I think throughout the filming of this entire show, I discovered my own super skill. And I think my super skill is being adaptable, you know, being flexible, adapting to the environment, to whatever situation that life throws at me, and remaining cheerful in the face of challenge and adversity. So I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you think is your super skill? You know, a big part of the show for me in my mind is encouraging people to think about their own super skills, the super skills that you guys already have, and some of the super skills that have inspired you throughout this show, things that you think you could integrate into your own life to make it better, healthier, wilder, happier. And if you haven't yet watched the second episode of Super Skilled with the Hadzabe Hunter-Gatherers, it's linked right there and also below. All right, happy watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.